3, 2, 1. Okay. What's good? And welcome back to another episode of the Colour Reimagined Podcast, presented to you by People of Color Clothing. Of course, I'm your host, Darius Northern, and today we have not one but two special guests, one of which you should be very familiar with if you are tapped in with the People of Color Clothing website or Instagram. We have the lead photographer today, Yvette Chow, joining us as a guest / co-host. And then we also have our best friend, Tyson Adams Jr., here with us. And he is the star of the show. So we're going to dive into his journey, dive into his discovery, dive into his self-truth. And we're going to have a prolific conversation. So without further ado, let's welcome Yvette and Tyson.
Man, thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Welcome to the podcast platform. I'm excited to have both of you guys. Tyson definitely has a unique story, but Yvette, you're kind of tied in because you're literally Tyson's day one. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into who Tyson is, what he's been through, and how he's evolved over time. And Yvette, you've been there the entire time. So again, you've had a front row seat to all of this. So super excited to dive in to today's podcast episode. Without wasting any time, let's hop right in. Tell us a little bit about Tyson Adams Jr.
Yeah, so I'm Tyson. I'm 24. I come from a mixed family. My dad's Black, my mom's Japanese. I was born in Denver, Colorado, and then I moved to Oregon when I was 3 or 4. We were in Westland for about a year, and then we moved to Corvallis, and that's pretty much where my family's been this whole time. You know, I went to elementary school, middle school, high school there. My parents still live there, so that's pretty much home for me. I have a big family. I'm one of 7 siblings. So I have 2 older half sisters from my mom, 1 from my dad, and then I have 3 younger siblings that are all my full siblings. So there's a lot of that. Yeah,
that's dope. And kind of doing a little bit of studying about you prior to this interview. You went to U of O, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you study there?
Yeah, my degree was in human physiology, and I had a minor in chemistry and psychology.
Sheesh. Big time. What about you, Yvette? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I was born in Las Vegas, which is really random, but we moved to Albany first, and then Corvallis. And my parents divorced when I was like 2, and then my mom remarried. So I'm half Chinese, my dad's Chinese, and then my mom's Korean, and she remarried to a Korean man. So I feel more Korean just because I grew up in a Korean household. But I also have 3 siblings. I have an older full brother, an older stepsister, and a younger half brother. But yeah, we grew up in Corvallis basically, and then I went to Oregon State, majored in marketing, and graduated in 2019.
Belated congratulations on graduating 2019. I graduated 2019 too with a degree in public health, but I'm not really practicing using my degree. So, so just to kind of for our audience, could you enlighten us on the depth of friendship, Yvette?
Yeah, so we met in 1st grade, and I forget like exactly how we met. Tyson says we were making fun of this girl, but we became friends with her too, like best friends. And then, that's us at the zoo. But we met in 1st grade, and literally we're inseparable. I think it's because we were the only non-white people in class. We just related like on everything. I don't know. I don't know what 1st graders talk about anymore, but we were like, yes, like on the same page. We played the same games. We were like, let's do like superpower games. Let's do like house. And like, we both loved it. So yeah, we were just like inseparable from 1st grade, but we went to different middle schools and then came back together in high school, and then obviously went to different colleges, and now Tyson lives in San Francisco. But yeah, we've known each other for like 18 years, I think. Yeah.
A long time.
That's very, very wild. So getting into him kind of sharing his experience, his evolution. Yvette, like I said before, you've had a unique position in his life, being that you've been able to see the maturation process. You've been able to see him go from this to that. So I'm really excited to hear his story, but I'm also excited to hear like you kind of chime in with, you know, maybe details that he maybe hasn't heard before. So,
Right.
So back to you, Tyson. What was it like growing up for you? And when did you first realize you were attracted to the same sex per se?
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is kind of a common theme that you would probably hear from other people that are, you know, gay and growing up. You don't necessarily know, like, as you get older, you don't really know. It's kind of, you just feel different, but you don't know what's different about you. And that's kind of how I felt, because it's probably different now, but I guess back then, like, no one really talked about being gay or what it was, or, you know, what it meant to be gay, and I guess what the signs of that were. And so it doesn't really cross your mind, especially when you're a little kid. You don't really think about stuff like that. And so it wasn't until, I think it was 8th grade, another one of my friends, she is really into theater. And so in that community, there's a lot of people that are part of the LGBTQ community and just happen to be a lot more comfortable with it at an earlier age from my experience. And so she knew other guys that were gay. And so I remember one day she asked me, she was like, do you think you could be gay or bisexual or whatever? And I remember at the time I was kind of like, maybe, you know, like I wasn't offended. I wasn't, you know, scared of it. I just had never really crossed my mind before. And so at that time, but I was also dating a girl at that time. So there's that. And so I identified as bisexual, which can also be kind of, that's another issue within the community, is that a lot of people think, you know, if you say you're bisexual and you're a guy, you're probably just gay, but you're just saying that because it's, you know, easier and more palatable to, you know, the public. But for me, it's truly what I felt like at the time, because this person that I was dating, you know, I did really like them. And, you know, in 8th grade, you know, when you're that young, you've never really had like a true relationship where you know, genuinely love someone. You don't really know what that feels like. And so
for sure,
at the time, you know, that felt right. But, you know, it was in 8th grade. And then from then, you know, I never really like questioned it. I think after the girl and I broke up, you know, I kind of just decided, you know, maybe that wasn't for me. You know, I think I actually am just gay, not bisexual. And I kind of just realized that after the fact. And, you know, we're still friends. There was nothing wrong with that. And I told her that I felt like I was bisexual when we were dating, and, you know, she was totally okay with it, you know, which is fortunate for me. But yeah, no, it was around 8th grade, freshman year.
Through that process, from, you know, the moment that the girl in the theater class or cohort asked you about it, was there any moment of like doubt within that time frame, or any moment of suppression, or any moment of like denial or anything like that? Or did you just fully embrace like, okay, yeah, I might be this and it's okay? Yeah,
so I mean, fortunately for me, I never really had any issues with, you know, self-doubt or suppression or anything like that. I mean, I did start out by saying I was bisexual, but that wasn't necessarily because I was, you know, trying to be more palatable to anyone. It's just what I felt like at the time. And then, you know, naturally, as you get older, you kind of just find yourself a little bit more. And so that's kind of what happened with me. But, you know, I kind of just embraced it from the beginning. I, you know, never tried to hide it or, you know, push it away or anything, which is, you know, fortunate for me, because I know a lot of people don't have that same experience.
Oh, that's dope. It's cool. And it sounds like you might have had a lot of support around you as well for you to feel comfortable enough to kind of walk into that. I think that's really cool. And then Yvette, from your perspective, like, I know this is kind of like the middle school phase and you guys were separated, right? But I'm sure you guys were still around each other, I'm assuming. What was it like from your perspective looking at Tyson? Like, did you have inklings, or was it just kind of like you didn't really care because you're young and you're just growing yourself?
I would say like I didn't care at all. I was just like, he's my friend and that's it. And like whatever he wants and whatever he likes, that's fine. And I was never like, oh, he's gay or oh, he's bi. I was just like, whatever, you know, makes you comfortable and what you enjoy, then I am supportive of that. And like, I think I did have some feeling around high school. I think middle school's a little hard, but like I just
Yeah.
felt like throughout our whole lives, like we related to a lot of stuff, and like no other guy related to stuff like that with me. And so but I wasn't like gay. Like I was just like, oh, that means like we're good friends and everything. And then I think in high school I started feeling more so like I could tell, but we were like siblings, so it's hard to be emotional. It's hard to like say like difficult things to one another. So that was like, I think it was just trying to, we're all trying to figure ourselves out in high school no matter what, and it's a difficult time. So I wasn't concerned about his sexuality. I was still trying to figure out who I was, and
Exactly.
I just, like I said, I just wanted to be supportive and be there and be a good friend. But yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, and Tyson, like, what was high school for you? Like once you realized, like, okay, after that girl, and realized, like, hey, I may not be bisexual, I might just be like gay. Like, what was that experience like navigating high school?
Yeah. So for me, it's a little different just because I never really had a specific coming out. You know, I didn't do the thing where I posted on Facebook. I didn't post on Instagram. You know, I didn't like sit everyone down and say like, hey, you know, I'm gay. I always kind of wanted it to be, at least for me, just something that was. And so if it came up in a conversation, you know, I would just be like, oh, you know, I'm interested in this guy, or, you know, instead of just being like, oh, by the way, just so you know, I'm gay. Like, I just wanted it to kind of be normalized and just be a part of who I was without making it a big deal. And so I never really specifically told anyone other than, well, there was that one girl initially, and then I had a group of 4 other girls that I told. I think it was either 8th grade also or freshman year. And then I told Yvette, but I think I told you last. I didn't tell you until like, I think
Senior
like,
year.
year maybe. I don't know. But like you knew, like I didn't keep it a secret, but I just never specifically told you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why do you think Yvette was the last person to, I guess, not necessarily know, but to you made it known to her? Like, why do you think she was the last person?
Yeah, well, growing up, she was like pretty involved in her church. And so, you know, on Friday nights, she was always going to youth group, and she like wouldn't come to the dances with us, or like, you know, go to the games with us. And so I didn't know like how I knew she'd be okay with it, but for some reason, like in the back of my mind, there was just like a little bit of kind of like, well, what if she isn't okay with it? Even though like I knew like in my heart that she wouldn't care. And so that's kind of why I waited so long. And then by then she can obviously talk about this too. She wasn't as involved in the church at that point anymore. And so I felt more comfortable kind of just being like, oh, hey, by the way, you know, this is who I am. And she was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I knew. It's okay.
And what was going through your head at this time, Yvette?
Yeah, I mean, I was so involved in church. It was like forced on me as a kid. I was like, this is normal. Like, I didn't know any different. And then it kind of became like my personality. And it was just like, I don't like that part of me just because it was too much. And like, as a kid, I felt kind of brainwashed. Like, I was like, oh, this is like correct. Like, this is what it's supposed to be. Like, my mom does it, my sister, like, you know. And it was around like sophomore, junior year when I was like, wait, this is like fucked up. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, why am I not doing normal things? Like, why am I not going to the dances? Why am I not going to football games? And then obviously in church, they taught me like, oh, marriage is between a man and a woman. And I was like, what the like, literally, I just was confusion because I was like, that's just not it. Like, it sounds so strict and so, I don't know. I just didn't support that. And then I was like, this isn't who I am anymore. Like, I need to leave. It was just toxic. And then so I left, and yeah, so I felt more like comfortable after I left, and I got to like go to the dances and go to football games and not be shamed for doing that. Like, I was literally shamed for going, or like oh, you
Oh,
should be
wow.
at youth group. Like, why aren't you at youth group? And so I totally understand why he waited so long to tell me, because I was just a Christian. I was literally like posting lyrics on Facebook about like Christian songs and stuff. And I would be scared too of me. Like, literally, I would have been like terrified if I met this girl and she was like preaching all day. But yeah, so I understand why he waited so long, and like that's totally okay, because I knew, but I wasn't gonna go up to him and be like, hello, are you gay? Like, I was never gonna say that. And so I was just like, it takes time and patience. And like I said, we have like a very close relationship, and with my siblings, like I'm not really emotional, so I totally understand, like, just like, it's not hard news, but like being a little bit more personal with someone
Yeah,
you're
for
really
sure.
close to, it can be difficult.
For
And so I got it. But yeah, it was funny, he texted me one night and he's like, hey, I just need to tell you something. And I was like, what could you possibly tell me other than like that you're gay? And so I was just like, that's fine. Like, he texted me and I was like, girl, I've been new. But I was like,
Yeah.
I support you and everything. But that's how it went. And then yeah, so
That's dope.
that's the story.
And Tyson, like, what was the reaction of your family to you not necessarily coming out, but organically coming out, or naturally coming out? Like, what was your family's reaction, and how important was their support in that process?
Yeah, so this is where it's kind of like a little bit weird, just because I never specifically told my parents that I was gay either. And so, just kind of naturally, like, I had like certain mannerisms where I would like say certain things or, do certain things where they would kind of, I mean, my parents have said now that they've like known my entire life that I was probably gay. But initially, I would do something and my mom or like my dad would say like, oh, don't do that. Like, that makes you look gay, or like, you shouldn't do that. You don't want people to think you're gay. And, that was kind of like all growing up. And so I kind of just got used to it and I was like, whatever. But then towards like junior, senior year of high school, there were a couple instances. I think this only happened like twice, where my parents would pull me aside and be like, are you gay? And then initially my mom, she did the whole like, you're not going to go to heaven with us. Like, is that okay with you? Yada, yada, yada. And for some reason, like, obviously that was hard to deal with a little bit, but I knew that they would come around. I don't know why. I just had a feeling that, that's just how they feel right now. They just don't have any experience with this. They'll come around. And so those conversations happen, once or twice. And then we kind of just stopped talking about it. Like basically the end of my senior year, they never brought it up. We just didn't talk about relationships. They obviously never asked about guys, but they also never asked about girls. It was just kind of this, but it wasn't weird. There wasn't any tension. It was kind of just like forgotten, but not in like I guess it's kind of toxic to not talk about that stuff, but also like it didn't feel toxic to me at that time. If that makes any sense. And so initially, I guess, they weren't okay with it. But once we stopped talking about it and then I went to college, I, was just living my life normally. And then I started dating my current boyfriend. And then I posted a picture of us on his birthday and I just said like, glad I met you or something like that. And then all of a sudden I got a text from like my older sister, both of them, and my mom, and they all said, oh, when did we get to meet him? Is that your new boyfriend? And then
that's dope. That's dope.
It was just normal. And my mom loves him. My dad loves him. They text and talk when I'm out there and whatever. And so it just took time. Basically, that's it. Yeah, nothing crazy.
And shout out to your parents for their own personal evolution. But growing up in that household, did you ever kind of suppress yourself around your parents, or were you just Tyson through and through?
So I mean, there were definitely times where like I would do something and my mom would be like, don't do that. That makes you look gay. And then I'd stop, kind of like, I wouldn't say that word or like say that phrase or, hold my hand like that or stuff like that. But, it would still happen. I didn't sit myself down and say like, you need to stop doing those things. Otherwise it's going to make them upset. I would just stop in the moment and just be like, okay, sorry. But, it would come back again, because it was who I was and it's what I was going to do. And so I didn't try to like permanently like hide that away.
So Tyson, you kind of hinted at your current relationship and starting to date in college. Did you start dating in college or did you date before?
I mean, like I talked to one guy in high school, but, he lived in a different city and, it was just like stupid high school stuff. It was nothing serious. And We hung out like twice, I think. So I wouldn't say it really counts. So pretty much like college is when I started dating.
So your current relationship, how has your partner kind of helped you kind of in your journey?
Yeah, no, for sure. He's definitely a lot more in tune with his emotions, I would say. Like that can attest to this. I'm not like this, and she isn't either. We're both not like super emotional people, and we don't really talk about our feelings all that often. And he's pretty much the opposite. And so he's kind of helped me, develop and be able to express my feelings in a positive way and a constructive way. And so he's helped me, get to this point, which is, obviously super beneficial. But also I feel like me being so comfortable with who I am, I've also helped him just because he grew up in a household where, being gay was definitely not okay. And so he struggled with it. Even when I met him when we first started dating, he was still kind of struggling with it. And so I've helped him in that way. And then he's helped me, be a little bit more emotional.
That's cool. How'd you guys meet?
So we actually met on Tinder one day. I was in Portland and he's from Portland. And so I was on Tinder one day, whatever, and we matched, and then we talked for a little bit, but he was going to Arizona State at the time. So it was kind of like, oh, whatever. He was just home for Christmas. And so we kind of just, that wasn't going to be anything. But then he like texted me one day and said, oh, I'm not staying at Arizona State. I'm going to transfer home. And so he's going to transfer to U of O, which is where I was going. And so I was like, okay, maybe we can hang out and meet. But he initially went to Portland State because he couldn't transfer in the middle of the year because he was a semester system at ASU and then your quarter system, so he couldn't transfer. So he stayed in Portland, and then we talked for a little bit, but then he started dating someone else. And so, so we didn't talk for like a year pretty much. And then he was at U of O and dating this other person, so we wouldn't really talk. I would see him on campus a couple times, and I'd wave or whatever. But then, pretty much like as soon as they broke up, he like texted me and was like, "Hey," and then we've been talking ever since, and that was like 3 years ago. So.
Oh wow, that's dope. Yeah, it's crazy kind of how things happen. You kind of like plant seeds and then later they'll grow without you even knowing. So yeah, that's cool. And shout out to your partner for circling back around.
Yeah,
came to his senses.
From your perspective, Tyson, though, like what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions straight people have about the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of them is kind of what I touched on earlier is that when people come out as bi, it's kind of like a stepping stone, and it's just like, oh, he's bi now, he's probably just gay. And, so that kind of like, at first I felt bad that I did that because, a lot of like in the bi community, there's a lot of what they call like bi erasure where, people say it doesn't exist. But, for me, I truly felt like I was bi at the time. I wasn't like using it as a stepping stone. But then even like, if you do that, it shouldn't invalidate the fact that there are people that are bisexual, straight community. And so I guess that's one of them that, if someone comes out as bi, they might totally be bi. And if not, they're not. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be gay just because they say that they're bi. And so, that's one of them. Another one, I guess this one's specific to, I guess gay male relationships. Is that there's always, a feminine one and a masculine one, or like, someone who like kind of falls into those roles, which, isn't true at all. Two, more feminine guys could be dating, two masculine guys could be dating. Like my boyfriend and I feel like we're both equally, feminine and equally masculine. And so, we don't fit that stereotype because it's, not really true. But yeah, those are a couple. I mean, there are definitely a lot more, I'm sure, within, the rest of the queer community and the trans community, but I don't necessarily want to speak on those just because, I'm not a trans individual or, so.
I feel you. Definitely understandable. And kind of to close out this episode, I feel like it's only apropos. Like, what advice would you have for someone questioning their sexuality, whether they're old, young, in this, you know, 8th grade like you were, or they might be a senior, or they might be in college, like what advice would you have for that individual?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's important to find kind of like role models or key figures to look up to, just because, you know, seeing people being happy and successful and healthy, like in, you know, an LGBTQ plus relationship is so, you know, like rewarding and helpful and encouraging. And so when I was growing up, I wouldn't say there were that many. There were a couple people, but not as prominent as it is now, especially with, you know, the development of social media, specifically Instagram. There's so many couples that are in the LGBTQ community that have, you know, Instagrams or, you know, Twitters or whatever, YouTube channels that are specific to, you know, their relationships. And, you know, I think it's so helpful for, you know, not even just the younger generation, but anyone who's struggling to really kind of look up to those and see that, you know, I'm not okay with this now, but these people have been in a similar situation and they've gotten to where they are now. You know, it's normal. You can have a normal relationship and a normal life. And so I think that's kind of just the main point of advice is, you know, find those role models and just kind of take your time. You know, there's no need to rush into anything just because, you know, you feel like you might be gay now doesn't mean you need to, you know, go out and date someone or, you know, do anything crazy. You know, take your time. There's no rush to get to any specific point in your life. So
patience.
Yeah.
And Yvette, from your perspective, like how important, or what is some advice from a friend, from a supporter standpoint that you would give to someone who may be in a similar role that you were in?
Yeah, I would say like always listen and also be patient. You know, you don't know what someone's going through, so you don't want to pry them or be like, I know you are. So just like that patience is key, and also listening, being there for someone, no matter what, just, you know, helping as much as you can, and being like that full supporter, that ally, like they are going through something and you're there to help them. And it's not about, you know, what they have to tell you or what they have to share, just being a friend in general, and also doing your research. If you don't know, you don't have to like make them uncomfortable by asking. Like, do your own research and take the time to, you know, educate yourself. Don't be ignorant and don't turn a blind eye, especially because like we have so much access to information, and social media. You know, everyone's posting infographics. I'm not saying you have to share every single thing you see, but like, you know, speak for something that you support and you care about, and then also take your time to read up and listen and you know, do your own research in your time. Also, you know, with rainbow washing of big companies, like seeing if they're truly supportive or if they've donated to, you know, like Mitch McConnell or whatever, but just like that, like taking that step too, if you're a full ally. And yeah, like I said, patience, listening, and just being a good friend. Especially like when I was in church, I was just so ignorant and I didn't know better, and like I was just like, oh yeah, this is right. So I guess perspective taking as well, just trying to understand what others are going through and being there for them.
Yeah, so it seemed like the theme of both of your guys' answer is just patience.
Yep.
Patience, love, and understanding is a key cog to just, I don't know, supporting someone as they kind of find their true self and find their freedom. But Tyson, before you go, I asked you to make a playlist. So we're going to kind of walk through your playlist a little bit.
Okay.
Kind of tell me what inspired some of this, man. Let's go from the top, the Beyonce track.
Yeah, no, Beyonce is definitely my like number one. Ever since I was little, you could ask my mom. When I was like 2 years old, I'd be in my car seat and Say My Name would come on and I would sing it, even though I didn't know the words. She always said I would say Simone. And then, you know, in the back of my car seat, that's what I've been doing since day one. So, you know, she's definitely got to be on there. School and Life, I don't know. It's just like an upbeat, you know, song that I like to listen to all the time. You know, has a good message, and yeah, that's why I put that one on there. But I mean, like, I didn't really pick any of these for like a specific reason. I guess
it's just what you're vibing to right now.
Yeah, well, not even necessarily. Like, I don't listen to these songs necessarily on a daily basis, but they're definitely songs that I might have discovered at a specific time, and you know, made me feel some type of way or something. And so they're just the ones that, I keep going back to, time and time again, just because, they're good.
All right, cool, man. So I'm definitely going to tap in with your playlist today. All right, but if you're looking at YouTube, you can just it's in the link in the description. But please tap in either on Spotify or Apple Music. And let's hear what Tyson's listening to. So I want to thank both of you guys for joining us. Really dope conversation, very insightful. Tyson, thank you for kind of sharing some intimate moments with us in your journey. And hopefully somebody listening who may be in the same predicament, maybe in the same situation, maybe kind of evolving at the same rate as you, can have someone to now look up to. You said, it's good to have people to look up to. So maybe you are now that person, maybe you're in that stage of your journey of being that individual that people can look to and find inspiration and find life in. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. Yvette, thank you for supporting Tyson. Thank you for being here as a guest. And that's our show.
Good.
Yeah, no, good.
What did you think?
I think it was cool. It was cool. I think his story. I said his like he's not here right now. I think Tyson's story is unique because I think we hear a lot of like traumatized stories a lot of times.
Yeah.
And Tyson's story was just kind of like, you can tell that he kind of had love and support around him, which is kind of like a unique story within itself. Because usually it's like, oh, somebody tried to beat it out of me, somebody tried to pray it out of me, somebody tried to church it out of me. And your family was just like, it looked like they were kind of veering towards that route, but then they just kind of stepped back and said, okay, we're just gonna let him be who he is. Like, we're gonna let him find his freedom and let him just let Tyson be Tyson, and not kind of hold, a Bible over him or whatever. So I think your story is really dope, really unique, in its own little way. And I think it's cool.
Yeah, no, because I was telling you about it at first. I was like, I don't really have anything like super crazy or like traumatic that happened to me. And so I don't know if like I'm a good person to do this. But then also I think it is good, especially, in the Black community, to see someone who is in the situation and hasn't had any trauma. You know what I mean? Like not everything has to, be bad. There can be totally normal progressions in life and it'd be okay. So, I think that, like, thinking about that, I was like, it's actually a good thing. So.
It is a good thing, because I think a lot of times, like I think as a Black community, just being like, okay, yeah, that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think that having that support and having that love really protrudes itself through your storytelling. So I think that's something that listeners and people can come out with at the tail end of this podcast and this story in this episode. So again, I love the story. I think it was cool.
Sweet, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I think that
we're good.
Yeah, that's it. Back to you, Adam. What was it like growing up for you, and when did you realize?
Sorry, Darius, it's Adams. Like his last name is Adams.
Oh, am I saying Adam?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
That's okay.
Adams. Why am I saying Adams? I should be saying Tyson. I wrote Adams on the paper. My bad.
No, it's okay.
All right, cool. So, say what I say. So dive into his experience. So, back to you, Adam. I keep saying Adam.
Yeah,
I keep saying.
It's okay.
Just say Tyson.
I know. I don't know. I have Adam written on the paper. I don't know why I said that. Oh my God. All right, cool. So.